Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight we have a late night insight video on a Sherwood fragrance. So Sherwood week continues, even though I snuck a list in there today, a Thierry Vassar Perfumers portfolio video. So you can go check that out if you are a fan of the list format where we talk about a lot of fragrances at once. That was basically a top 15. But today we're going to talk about a very, very underrated Sherwood fragrance. And if you are an oud lover, I would urge you, perk your ears up, pay very close attention to this one. This is called Paradise. Now, look at the color of that juice. I was waiting to do my final spray of the night. I just wanted to show you guys. I mean, it is absolutely stunning. First of all, if you are a lover of animalic, slightly fecal ouds, this is one that you should definitely get your nose on. And if you want the 30,000 foot overview, if you want the Cliff's Notes version of this, it opens up with kind of a slightly animalic fecal oud that is slightly oily in texture. When it wears on your skin, it wears oily. It smells slightly oily, almost like you're smelling this hot, steamy fertilizer that just got put on your flower bed or something, but without being too animalic is basically the idea. So this is a oud coffee fragrance, and I love this fragrance. In fact, this may be one of my favorite Sherwood fragrances. I think what has tempered that animalic oud down is the coffee. I think a couple things temper it down. There's coffee, there's iris, there's rose. There is some spices in here as well. He uses cardamom in the opening beautifully. So it's a little bit of sort of cardamom, lemon, and in the start, well, let me give you the note listing and then we'll kind of go through some of it. But there's bergamot in the top, lemon, Taif rose, berries, bourbon geranium, cardamom, and coffee. Those are the top notes. In the heart, you have Bulgarian rose, cacao, gardenia absolute, Irish jasmine sambac, Madagascan ylang ylang, Mysore sandalwood, Philippine oud, Spanish labdanum, Turkish rose, and violet. That's the heart. In the base, you have Assam oud, benzoin, birch, Cambodian oud, coffee absolute. So coffee in the top and the base. Gaiac wood, musk patchouli, tobacco absolute, tonka bean, and vetiver. So you can see right there an absolute hell of a note breakdown. And I'll tell you what, I mean, when I started this channel in my journey, and I've said this before, but when I started my journey and did the channel, I really wanted to smell the best fragrances the world had to offer. That was kind of my thing. I wanted to smell and explore the greatest fragrances. And the best thing about this hobby, and I've said it before, is that it never ends. There is no ending point to this. It's not like, oh, I've smelled everything, that's it, it's done. First of all, there's going to be constant continuation of fragrances being created. There's a lot of new fragrances to explore every single year. New stuff comes out. And then even if you go back in time, there's so much from the past that one person could never hunt down. Just when you think you know everything, stop and think again, because that if you think you know it all, that means you know nothing. I think the smartest people in this hobby realize that there was an old saying that when one of my friends growing up died, and we went to his funeral, the priest basically said this, and it stuck with me forever. He said, "I know that I do not know, therefore I am wise." And the constant exploration of this hobby, I think, is one of the most beautiful things. You don't know. You think you may know it all, or you think you may have smelled a couple hundred fragrances or whatever it is, but the list is almost infinite, it feels like. And so hopefully this channel and these videos help people to kind of make informed decisions, because going off the name, you would have no clue what this smells like. And there's hardly any videos on YouTube about this brand. They deserve more talk in the limelight. Go watch my other Sherwood videos if you want to learn more about the house. But I think what Prakhar Gupta has done is he's kind of tampered down this animalic oud with this hot, steaming coffee smell. It literally feels like you can feel the steam rising out of the thermos. And the animalic notes are being tag teamed with the slightly funky civet note. And the civet note here is made from this Kopi Luwak coffee, which is, if you're not familiar with that, it's basically digested Arabica coffee beans that they give to the civet. The civet literally eats it, shits it out, and then somebody goes through the civet's poop, pulls out the coffee beans and distills them, okay? It is actually a very expensive cup of coffee. I've never had one, but people pay a lot of money for that coffee. It's just crazy what people will pay big money for. But if you're not familiar with that coffee, look it up. It's a whole thing. It's a whole entire industry, basically. But the coffee berries are digested and pooped out and distilled that way. And they say the civet cat digesting it adds a special flavor. What that flavor is, I have no clue. But I think that that Prakhar Gupta used a little bit of animalics in here along with the oud. So even though I say it's not super animalic, you have to remember, I've said this before, know your reviewer. Know what your reviewer likes. If you're listening to a review from someone who likes sweet fragrances and they're hyping a sweet fragrance and you hate sweet fragrances, you have to know that reviewer likes sweet fragrances. For me, I would say one of the most important things to know about me is I have a very high tolerance for animalic. So when I say this is not that challenging, that's to me. It may very well be different to you, but I think that they used both oud and some form of civet in here as like a combination along with that Kopi Luwak bean. And they, are trying to give you that $100 straight out of the civet's ass coffee smell with the oud, okay? So along with the coffee, he used a berry note, which is smart because there's a couple different reasons why I think that berry note is smart, but it goes well with the coffee. Actually, if you smell straight brewed coffee, okay, some people say it smells like berries. Some people say it smells like blueberries or different types of berries. So I think the berry note is smart there for that reason. But there's also other reasons why I think the berry note goes well, mixes well with the rose that comes in later on and some other things. But I'll tell you what, in the top, you get this lemony, tea-like freshness from the Taif rose that blends with the fresh. Remember I said the coffee felt like it had like literal steam rising off of it, right? So the Taif rose, that's kind of buried underneath the stronger smelling coffee and oud combination with a little bit of that civet is beautiful. It is a beautiful opening with the Taif rose and the lemon. They go hand in hand together, bergamot, lemon, Taif rose, to give this fresh part to a very challenging opening to some people, okay? I think the animalics could be turned up even more, but I say that on a lot of stuff where people smell and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you would ever wear that. And I'm like, can you add some more animalics, please? But there are multiple types of oud in here. And I think I remember hearing that the concentration of real oud in Paradise is 20%. 20%. Now, a couple of notes on that. When this came out, this was under $100 for 30 or 50 mils or whatever his bottles are for. I think there's different ones that came out, different versions, so I never know exactly, but either 30 or 50 mils was under $100. For this type of perfumery, that is insane. That is absolutely nuts. That's like the time I went to some store and they were selling like a $7 leather jacket or something. It's nuts. Like, how is that even possible, right? And so value for money through the Sherwood brand is through the roof. Like I said before, it's almost like knowing a secret menu at a restaurant or something. The people who know about Sherwood, they know. And once his website is up and running at the end of the year, I have a feeling he's absolutely going to blow up. I think that he's going to blow up because the masses are going to find out about it. Now it's just the hardcore frag heads. He's still a little bit of a well-kept secret, okay? So the aged Philippine, there's multiple types of oud in here. The aged Philippine oud, according to Prakhar, was aged for north of 7 years. The aged Assam oud is well over 30-year-old, very old oud tree, oud wood. And the Cambodian oud, I don't know how old that oud is, but I do know that I think the Cambodian oud adds a little bit of a slightly petrol-like vibe. But this is a very woody take on oud, which sounds strange to say, but some ouds don't smell woody. And that may sound weird to somebody who's not a hardcore oud head, but Russian Adam, in one of his interviews, very famously said with me, in one of my 4 or 5 Russian Adam interviews on the channel, I forgot how many he's done, but he's done a lot. And on one of them, he came on and basically said that oud can smell like anything. Most people don't realize that. It can smell like iris. It can smell like berries. It can smell like chocolate chip ice cream. It can smell like vanilla. It can smell like all sorts of different things. You know, Kinam oud smells minty and cloudy and doesn't have that animalic, that fermented oud that most people think about is specific normally to Assam or Indian oud or stuff like that. So the Cambodian oud gives this petrol, gasoline-like vibe in here. But the oud, when you smell it, it's a very woody take on oud. It's almost like you just walked right up to the oud tree and just like ripped a chunk of the bark off of the tree, and you made the tree bleed. Like you can smell like the fresh wound from the tree, and the blood from the tree is almost like this oily like feeling. I mentioned the oud feels slightly oily in the opening, but there's something beautiful in smelling the rot on the inside of the wood, this transformation in the heartwood of the tree. Remember, one of the most beautiful things about oud is that oud is literally a transformation in the heart of the tree. It is the tree fighting off this fungus to try to stay alive. So you're literally smelling the trees fight for survival. There's something very poetic and beautiful in that. I'm sure someone else can put together better words than I can about it, but just imagine smelling this very woody smelling fungal, oily fungus-like smell, and with those petrol vibes from the Cambodian oud, the animalic vibes, the fermented side of the Assam oud, and the Philippine oud, which has been aged for more than 7 years. Absolutely stunning. And then you add the coffee, and the coffee note works really well in tandem with that oud beautifully, but don't think about like a fresh cup of Folgers or Maxwell House coffee or anything like that. This works as a beautiful complementary note. It just adds all this depth and realism, and it makes the fragrance smell even more realistic, like you're in that forest I tried to describe, and you're standing there with a professional oud hunter like Ensar Oud or Russian Adam or something like that, and from the thermos he pulls out this steaming hot cup of Kopi Luwak, right? Not Folgers or Maxwell House, pure Kopi Luwak coffee, because he's an artist in everything he does, even the coffee, right? So Kopi Luwak coffee comes out, and you can kind of smell the funk and the aromas as you're walking through this oud forest, and you're sitting there smelling these amazing oud oils with a true connoisseur, but you're also getting whiffs of this fresh thermos of Kopi Luwak coffee. And I would venture to say the coffee note, so I sprayed this 13 minutes ago or 12 minutes ago, whenever I started the video now. The coffee note is still getting stronger right now. Like I just got a whiff of that Taif Rose in the opening still, 12 minutes in. But once you hit about the 30-minute mark from memory is where that coffee note is going to take on a life of its own. It's going to become fuller and deeper and richer. And once that coffee note truly joins the party, this is where I really just sit back and think, wow, this is one of the best value for money fragrances I think I've ever come across in my journey. It for somebody like me who missed out on Oud Luwak by Areej Dore, which is my #1 oud coffee fragrance. I have a full review of Oud Luwak on the channel, off of a decant though. I don't own a bottle. And even I reviewed Ensar's Rumi, Rumi, which is based on Rumi and his poetry and writings and all that stuff, but it is a coffee oud. And I think coffee and oud is just an amazing combination. In fact, it's such an amazing combination. If you've been following the channel, you know that I mentioned recently that young Maxim Bortnikov, the son of Dmitry Bortnikov, is launching his own brand. And they reached out to me. They said they're going to send me the fragrances so I can discuss them on the channel, which I'm very excited about. But one of them is a coffee oud. So I'm hoping that it's at least half as good as this. I mean, I hope it's as good as this, but I'm really hoping it's really good, because I need a good coffee oud in my collection after missing out on Oud Luwak and not having Rumi or some of those other coffee ouds. There are some other coffee fragrances in my collection that I have. I have Rochas Man. I have a bottle of Pure Coffee by Thierry Mugler, which is a sweeter take on coffee. That's how most coffee fragrances are done nowadays, with that sweeter take. And most sweet coffees I'm not really into, but I really dig that Amen DNA with the chocolatey patchouli and all that stuff. So, but one of the great things about Paradise that has really struck me wearing it And this is the first time I've ever had a chance to truly wear it as my scent of the day, but I have tested this previously. I wore it to bed recently. And one of the things about Paradise is I would say how the ancillary notes kind of work together in this fragrance to amp up the fragrance and give it depth and richness. And oh man, it's so beautiful. You know, for a true fragrance connoisseur, especially someone who's an oud head, someone who has really been into real artisanal ouds, this fragrance is a gem, an absolute gem. But the cacao, the labdanum, the tobacco absolute, the birch, the patchouli, the gaiac wood, which can sometimes feel slightly smoky and burnt, which goes very well with coffee. Sometimes coffee gives off that. Obviously, you think about coffee sometimes giving off that burnt, smoky smell as well. Gaiac wood works perfectly with that. It just makes the fragrance feel intertwined, connected, but huge. You know, like you're walking through a maze, and there's so much to see and explore. And I love fragrances like that. I love fragrances with a lot to smell, you know? And so it's one of the reasons, honestly, why I've been so impressed with Prakhar Gupta's work. And I will say that, yes, this is a thick and a heavy wear. If you're new to the oud game, if you're not used to smelling real ouds, this may be something that puts you off at first. You may have to get acclimated to it. But if you have been in the oud game for a while, you know, I don't think this will be anywhere near too much for you. Like I said, 30 minutes in, the coffee note really starts to heat up. Bad dad joke. And between 30 minutes and an hour, you'll realize you're not just smelling the Taif rose and the lemony tea-like freshness in the top, but there's also Turkish rose in the heart, which is where I think that berry note comes in beautifully with the Turkish rose. And when that rose blooms, another bad pun, you kind of get this lemony, fresh, vibrant, but different feel to what you smelled for the first 30 minutes. It feels like a different style of rose. And so you can notice there's these different layers to the perfume. And I would think nowadays, if you just blindfolded me and said, Ramsey, sniff this, I would say $300-400 is what this fragrance goes for. $300-400, not 100 or less like it's sold for. So for me, the complexity, the quality of the ingredients, the layers, the transitions, the value for money for this has just completely floored me. It is one of the, I think, hidden gems in the fragrance world to find a brand like this where, you know, it's only been a couple years, I think, since the brand has been really introduced. But I have a feeling these old Sherwood fragrances, which I wish I had a bottle of Paradise, but these old Sherwood fragrances are going to go for some dough later on. Once people really are introduced to the brand and more of the general public knows the value of the brand. So if you just imagine, sit back and just imagine this slightly oily oud that's animalic mixed with this bitter, acidic, dark coffee, but kind of the coffee is still able to sit in the background a little bit and used in a way, I don't know how he's done it, but one of the brilliant methodologies to this fragrance is how the coffee can feel so gentle and relaxed. Like you're in that forest and you're, you know, all-star, oud, connoisseur, whoever you like, Taha from Agar, or whoever your favorite one is, right? He's standing next to you. You guys are going on oud sniffing trips together, and you're just getting whiffs of his coffee because he's a little far away. And so somehow Prakhar Gupta managed to create this coffee note that doesn't dominate. Obviously, it's an oud coffee, but the coffee doesn't dominate. It's proportioned brilliantly, and it just allows the oud and ingredients like the rose to really shine in the scent, to me. And the coffee beans are earthy and bold, and the coffee beans here sometimes give off a little bit of that smoky element with this kind of amazing oud trio that I mentioned earlier with the Cambodian oud, the Philippine oud, the Assam oud, apparently dosed at 20% in this fragrance. 20%, absolutely crazy. Makes this one of my all-time favorite Sherwood perfumes, especially as I'm becoming more and more of an oud head. So as I said in the opening, the name I think may make some folks a little bit reticent to try it because they see Paradise and they think, oh, it's going to be something tropical with coconuts and all that. Could not be further from the truth. In fact, it isn't tropical at all. It is a paradise for an oud lover, is the way to put it. this is a paradise for an oud lover and a lover who has taken the plunge into artisanal perfumery. And I think it's funny because just talking to some folks and just kicking the shit about the House of Sherwood, I think they look at this as kind of an outsider. Let's say an American looks at it and they say, okay, $100 or less. What's wrong with it? There must be something wrong. He must be cheating on this or that. There can't be 3 real types of aged oud in here. And I didn't even mention the real iris or some of the other things yet. Well, I did, but in the note listing. It can't be good as Areej or Ensar for these prices. It has to be worse. But the reality is, I'm telling you, this and fragrances like Ambrosia, which I reviewed on the channel, for me, absolutely are competing with the big boys. This is Prakhar Gupta's coming out party. I think 2024 is going to be kind of the year of Prakhar Gupta coming out and no more hiding in the shadows. Time to really kind of make his mark and stand on his own 2 feet. This fragrance does that. I mean, this fragrance is a statement maker. It's a beautiful fragrance as I throw it around. But the important parts to remember is the bitter aspect of the coffee, which many modern coffee fragrances nowadays are just disgusting sugar bombs. By keeping the fragrance bitter, it's kind of allowed the oud to shine, to do the heavy lifting, and to show off the beauty of the ouds, right? And I don't think all ouds smell the same into the dry down. I do think there are some similarities depending on which types of ouds are used, but they're all different. And, you know, what he's done is he's used things like tonka bean, which I think tonka is a big player in this in the base. It helps sweeten the tobacco absolute in the base beautifully, but without making the fragrance sweet, if that makes sense. And iris is a big player as well, which I didn't really get a chance to talk about. The iris note here adds texture and poshness and slightly powdery, slightly chalky, but I think when I said in the beginning that the fragrance is animalic, but it doesn't smell super animalic, right? I think the iris is part of the biggest reason why it feels a little bit more elegant. It doesn't feel like just a big punch in the face, fecal, animalic, challenging, fermented oud. It doesn't. That's part of it. But I think the iris makes the fragrance smell posh, you know, makes it smell like it's worn by somebody who's not wearing a ripped sweater, right? It really feels like if you pay attention, you'll notice how major of a component the iris is in the dry down. And again, another detail for a fragrance under $100 to have details like this punches way, way above its weight class. Now, for me, if you put me up against the wall and said, Ramsey, you can have one oud coffee fragrance, go. Oud Luwak. No doubt about it, 100%. Oud Luwak is my number one. I love how Oud Luwak kind of uses that patented Russian atom, like lava-like amber that you were introduced to in Russian oud, and then he used again in Oud Zen. But I have to say that as far as those second tier coffee and ouds go, I would even put Rumi by Ensar in that second tier. Although Rumi had a much more prominent coffee. The coffee was a huge player in Rumi. It was much stronger. It wasn't used in the same way as it's used here. Here, the coffee is used not as an ancillary note, because I still think it's fair to call this an oud coffee, but it's not anywhere near as powerful and upfront as it is in Rumi. So if you want your coffee like bam in your face, go with Rumi by Ensar Oud. Rumi had a much heavier hit of coffee. But speaking of Zen, I have to say this is something that one of my friends Areej pointed out, and I 100% agree with him. He said this fragrance has a Zen-like feeling to it, where it just sort of calms you. And if you're an oud lover, you'll know exactly what I mean. There are some ouds that are kind of contemplative and they make you think, and you know, they really make you think about your place in the universe, and they're introspective, right? And then there are some oud fragrances that you just kind of want to put on when you just want to relax, when you just want to relax and let loose and just kind of be calm and at peace, and you had a hard day at work or whatever, you just want to kick your feet up and just relax. This fragrance has some of that Zen-like meditative calming products. I think for a work fragrance, if you don't mind wearing something with a little bit of funk in it, which I love wearing these type of fragrances, this would be perfect for me at work, because this fragrance kind of just keeps your mind in this constant, you know, if you have to work with the general public or whatever, and you have people yelling at you occasionally or whatever, or you have to remain calm and you're talking to many different clients or whatever your job may be, you're interacting with the public. It may be tough if you're face to face with some of the public, you know, if you're trying to sell cars or something wearing this, maybe that's not the best thing to do. But if you work in an office or something and you can close the door and you're by yourself, this is amazing. Or if you're in a place where it doesn't really matter what fragrance you wear, if you're the boss, this is amazing. So yes, Paradise is one of my favorite Sherwoods, and I mean, you know, for me, it is it's up there with things like I know I said Czar is one of my all-time favorites, which I haven't shown this bottle in a while, but Czar is one of my favorites. Go watch my Czar review. Ambrosia probably still is my favorite, but man, Czar, as good as this is, I think Paradise may be better than Czar. It's there's some serious competition now for my favorite Sherwood. So yes, more Sherwood reviews to come, believe it or not. I still have things like Bespoke, Horizon, Blue Pearl, so there's still more Sherwoods to come as Sherwood Week goes on. I'll sprinkle in some lists here and there, but I do feel, we'll see how many more I get through. I may have to pivot and we may have to go in another direction, but I feel like I made my point already that there are some absolute bangers in this house and they deserve to be explored for the real frag head, looking for something different, looking for something quality and at an amazing price. I can't think of another house doing what the House of Sherwood is doing. This value for money is through the roof. So anyways, that's my thought. You can see I only have a decant, so I'm going to cherish this as much as I can. But if you have any experience with Paradise, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments as always. So thanks everybody for the support. Cheers. Have a great night. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.